automation and orchestration, endpoint detection and response, network visibility, cloud, containers, DevSecOps, threat intelligence, security platforms. Wondering how to keep up with all the latest security products and trends while still keeping your organization safe? Then stick around to listen to Ready, Set, Secure, the SET Solutions Podcast.
Whoa, get in frame there. Hey, everybody. Michael Farnham here with SET Solutions. We got Netcode. I'm here to Netcode. There we go. All right. Yeah, we had a little technical difficulties. Lauren's like in the same room with us over there, so it was like going back and forth. We'll get this thing figured out. So hey, everybody, Michael Farnham, CTO with SET Solutions. Thanks for joining us live. We are here at DEF CON. We're at the Bally's in our suite. If you are at DEF CON and you want to come by our suite, you can. Just give us a shout and we'll let you know. We don't want to invite everybody at DEF CON. Joined here by Justin Hutchins, aka Hutch. How you doing, Hutch? Good. Love that hat.
Thank you.
Pretty sweet. Yeah. So thanks for joining us again. We are going to do a little live here and talk about Hutch's DEF CON talk. So we've mentioned it a couple of times here over the last probably couple of months, I guess, since you've been accepted. We thought we'd dig in. It is, you can, do we have the time? I think it's at 3:30.
3:30 Vegas time, 5:30 for Texas time.
5:30 for Texas time. Yep. And you've got the link down there below. Thank you, Lauren, for putting that up. So it is a pre-recorded talk, right?
It is.
So you get to be there to answer at the Village. So if anybody's there, you'll physically be there.
I will be. It'll be one of those uncomfortable situations where I get to watch, or everybody gets to watch me watch my own talk.
That is interesting. That is very uncomfortable.
It is.
It's the world these days, man, until we get through all this mess. But at least it's happening, right? People are on site. They're here in Vegas. Got to wear a mask, all that. But it's Lauren's got something to say. Okay. So why don't you give a kind of an overview of what the talk is going to be about? We obviously don't want to give everything away, right? But let's give an interview or kind of overview of what the talk's about.
Yeah, so the talk is on hacking Alexa devices and specifically Alexa for Business. So obviously virtual voice assistants have grown in popularity, and it's not just being used in people's homes. It's also a lot of businesses are starting to adopt these and use them for different business operations, whether that's interfacing with their own internal personnel, managing calendars and other conference room type stuff, or some organizations are even using it to interface with their clients and customers. And Amazon is really the big player in this. Obviously, you have some other voice assistant platforms, but Amazon has gotten significant adoption in the business space because they have Alexa for Business, which is an AWS service which allows an organization to manage a large fleet of Alexa devices at scale. And so it gives you that single central interface where you can manage, deploy skills, do all your configurations on that device. And so we ended up doing a penetration test for a organization that was using Alexa devices to interface with their customers. And it's actually, we're seeing more and more adoption, specifically within the healthcare industry, where organizations are using Alexa as an alternative to the traditional nurse call button. So rather than the nondescript, I just push a button and the nurse has no clue what they're responding to. Obviously with Alexa, you have much more capability to have an idea of what the patient needs before the nurse even gets to the room, because instead of just a nondescript button, you can say, Alexa, tell my nurse I need this, or Alexa, I'm in pain, or Alexa, I need ice chips, or any number of different things. And there is a enterprise skill called Ava that specifically provides this functionality. to hospitals. And so a lot of hospitals are starting to adopt this skill set and make that available in patient rooms. So we went in with kind of the approach of having the same level of access to these Alexa devices as any patient would have, just physical access to the device unattended in a room. And what we were able to discover is that given the default configurations, and of course, no IT professional ever deployed anything with the default configurations.
Never,
right?
ever. So this is not a risk at all.
Right.
Yeah.
But with so by default, when you deploy Alexa devices within Alexa for Business in AWS, the setup mode is enabled. And what that allowed us to do was execute an attack and it was a pre-staged attack, but within less than 1 minute of physical access, we could not only take over the device, but also overwrite all of the hospital-related functions to implement whatever malicious code we wanted to. So really kind of a three-pronged attack. It was use setup mode in order to take over management of the device. Then obviously, I guess really before we even did, so that's the execution of the attack. But before that, since it's a pre-staged attack, what we did was we looked at the way that the app was operating and reverse engineered the actual Ava skill set, and were able to identify how that ran so that we could create our own malicious version of that using the same invocation name and intent utterances, which I get into some of what those are in the talk. Understanding the attack really and the specifics of it does require you to have some understanding of how Alexa skills are coded. And so I definitely break that down in the talk. I'll explain kind of how to build your own, and we'll start with just kind of the basics of here's a hello world skill set, just so I can break down those specific individual things. But from that knowledge, we were able to reverse engineer the existing application, identify what the invocation name and the intent utterances were, and we were able to code our own malicious app. And then we discovered that if you enable development functionality of the malicious app within your own developer account on Amazon, then whenever you take over an Alexa device with your with the setup mode, you can essentially, it automatically deploys any of those skills that you're creating. So it's kind of a three-step attack of you get physical access, you setup mode takes over the device, and then automatically deploys that malicious code, which uses, again, the same kind of verbal interactions as the original skill set used. But now you have the opportunity to do all kinds of things, whether that's verbally harass your users, which we do a proof of concept for that, all the way to much more nefarious things like voice phishing attacks or vishing, where we are able to. So one proof of concept that we did is if you ask Alexa for medication or tell my nurse I need medication, basically tells you, well, in order to get your medication, we need to validate patient identity. Please provide your name and social security number. And then we're able to scrape that on the back end without having, you never have to go back and get physical access to the device again. You can then remotely access that since you now have ownership control of the device.
So the initial attack takes physical access in order to get there.
To take it over.
So hopefully, the hospital's got some physical security in place to keep you from doing that. So that mitigates to some level, not all levels, but obviously, but there's ways around that. I mean, social engineering attacks, you can get in there and do stuff. But at least to that level, because I'm also thinking of this as not just business attacks, but you could, do this because these are obviously in tons of homes and millions of these devices out there. I guess I don't know what the real numbers are, but those could be compromised pretty. I mean, if you can get physical access to there, you can do some of the same stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So the nice thing about the enterprise version is while the default configuration does have setup mode enabled, you can, across your fleet of devices, disable that and do the proper hardening. With home devices, that's not even an option. Setup mode is always
Yeah.
enabled. It's always
Yeah.
there, and you can, if you want to troll your friends and family, then yes,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of pre-writing those skills that somebody uses on a regular basis and
Just have
rewriting
fun
them
with
with
it.
what logic you
Yeah.
want to put on there.
So, and I'm not a huge Alexa guy, but I know if you get rid of setup mode in the enterprise context, it's really not reduced functionality. You're still going to be able to manage those and do all the stuff you need to do and set those skills up on the back end. You don't have to have setup mode on those. Is it a recommendation that now that they turn that off as a default mode in enterprise?
So I've been surprised. I've done some searching through Amazon documentation to see if I could find kind of a best practice hardening guide that suggests that. I mean, the option is there to disable it, but I haven't found anything that's formal guidance that says if you're deploying this in the enterprise, you definitely need to be disabling setup mode. And that's one of the things that I'm highlighting with the talk is really probably two things that organizations need to do. You made the point of physical access.
Yeah.
I mean, in a situation like this where your customer's interfacing with it, they're going to have some amount of physical access, but there are things that an organization can do, such as putting it out of reach. I mean, you just have to verbally interact with it. They don't need to be able to touch it. So something like mounting it on the wall or ceiling can minimize the likelihood that they can physically interact with it. And then the other part is, you need to go in there and disable setup mode in the enterprise configurations.
Gotcha.
But like I said, there hasn't been a whole lot from Amazon in terms of formal guidance around this is something you should do.
Well, maybe this will help change that.
We shall see.
And anybody watching this or watching Hutch's talk, they'll know that, if you work in any kind of environment, because this, obviously this has business uses outside of healthcare, right? I mean, all kinds of different contexts,
Right.
and which hence the name of the talk, right? Other business contexts as well. So, well, thanks, man. Thanks for covering this. Excited to see it. Everybody, we've got again, Lauren, if you'll throw up the link, there you go. There's the link, Twitch TV/IoT Village. You can go to that. They'll give you all the information together. I know they've got probably numerous talks going on, but Hutch's will be at 3:30 Pacific, 5:30 Central Time, 6:30 Eastern, 4:30 Mountain, wherever you are. Do your own calculations. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the talk, and we will see you next time. Appreciate it.
Cheers.